So sorry about that. I did not know that it was network interruption from my side at all. I'm so sorry about that. We're almost done and we're not going to have any interruption again. I actually really did think that it was from my side. Thank you so much, Reva, Aref's cousin. Except we may have to reschedule a part 2 for this. I know that the reschedule has to be somewhere by 1. Yes, I know she does. So let's see what we can accomplish for the rest of this. Okay, I'm waiting to add her to the conversation so that we can go on. Okay, I'm not sure she has seen. I'm also trying to contact her personally. Yes, I'm trying to do that because that was so as a matter of fact, if I was there for a while thinking that the network interruption was from her side, that one already wasted a lot of time. Okay, thank you so much. Yes, okay. She's here. Thank you so much, Toritseju, for coming back. Dude, what's so much network drama?
Wow. I don't know what happened. Just kept waiting and waiting.
I even thought it was you. So I spent the first how many minutes saying, "Oh, I can't hear you, until I realized that it was actually from my side. I'm so sorry
Yeah,
about
that's
that.
it.
That one also wasted time. Okay, I'm so sorry. You were sharing about the day. You were trying to narrate what happened that day, how that day was before the
Yeah.
whole net.
Yeah, so all this while I really give it to the medical team. They really did their best. Always tried different innovative things, that anything that came, they tried it. But by April 2016, they told us there was nothing more they could try. They were at their wits' end. They had tried everything. The only thing they thought maybe could possibly extend his life again by a month was for them to totally, I can't remember the organ that they were going to take out, and then they would then have it in a bag. And yeah, it was just going to be horrible. And even then they just said, and that wasn't going to be a cure either, because they had also said, okay, he had tried the whole, anyway, let's not go into that. So they had said there's nothing more they could do medically. And, all this while we were combining medicine, faith, everything, different things together, just to, but hearing that now from the medical team was a huge blow. And, we were expecting 10 years at least. Now that they this was year 4, and they said there was nothing else they could do. I'm like, okay, this is God. Now finally, he doesn't even want to compete with anyone. He doesn't want a situation where they'll say, oh, it's chemo that worked, or it's radiotherapy that worked. He just wants to heal him overnight, and I'm like, yes, this is I was crushed a bit, but I Hello?
Yes, I can hear you
Are
now.
you there? Yeah.
Yes, I'm there very much. You said you were crushed a bit.
I was crushed, but I would at the time that I was still in faith because hello? Now, okay.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, it keeps rolling, and when I say rolling, I just think, okay, you can't hear me. So, like I said, I was crushed, but I thought I was in faith, but a lot of us don't know the difference between faith and hope. So I was hoping, but maybe there was no faith. Yeah, that's another topic entirely. But yes, so I just thought, okay, God, you want to take all the glory. There's not going to be chemotherapy. There's not going to be radio. It's just going to be God taking all the glory. This was what I thought at that point. So we weren't even fearful. Even Dakotu was just like, okay, look, now it's just full on prayers, faith, declarations or whatever. This was April. And the doctor had said, why don't you just stay in the UK type of thing and don't go back, this and that. And we're like, no, God is going to heal me. God is going to heal me. So I really thought, going back to him, we were going to tell him miraculously how Dapo was healed. But obviously that didn't happen. April, he seemed fine. May, he seemed okay, But by June, I started noticing that he was getting really tired. He was getting tired. He was deteriorating again. Because even through all this, like if you knew him, if you met him, such an upbeat guy, like he would even be more concerned for you. Like he never wanted people to to pity him. And it wasn't from a place of pride. It was from a place of don't even bear any burden, like I'm fine type of thing, So even all this while, he didn't want me to know that he was tired or he was in pain or his body was just not responding, because his mind was still so sharp. There's nothing like having, your mind is still there, you're still together, but your body is just not there. Your body is not present with you any longer. So, and I know one thing he kept on saying, he doesn't want to become a vegetable. He doesn't want to go and start living in any hospital, any hospice, because I know then they had also said palliative care, so he would be well taken care of, obviously, because I'm not a nurse. They kept on, saying because, and I understood later because my auntie was telling me, because, you find some people when you're now looking at their bodies, because it's hard. People who are caring for people who are sick, because they get tired as well. Maybe they forget to do things. So these signs show on the person's body, So I didn't even understand because at that time, people kept on telling me, Toju, people who had experienced cancer and had lived with people who had died, kept on telling me, Toju, you need to get a nurse. You need to get help. I remember my boss at the time, got a nutritionist, doctor, person to come and to the house, and she kept on
Yes.
you go up and down the staircase so many times. You're the one also looking after the children. You need professional help. But that would mean I was giving up on myself as a wife, on him as a husband. And it just, anytime they said get help, I just felt like a failure. So to me, I couldn't. But then at some point, and I was saying, Tojo, are you being selfish? This is not about you here. It's about what he needs. You saying he shouldn't get a carer. Yes, even though that he has said to him that's the beginning of the end when he sees that he's being looked after by a nurse. But are you sure deep down inside it's not because of yourself? Are you sure you're not being selfish? I used to ask myself over and over again that different times, when he would was tired. I used to ask myself, Toju, are you sure you're not being selfish, pushing him a bit too much? You know, are you sure it's not just because of you? Because that was, he could literally give, like, that. He would give, oh, it's rolling again. Okay, he would give me his eyes and be blind. He was that kind of person. And yes, because I know, even when we're married, I used to tell him that, look, I'm not even sure whether it's even about me, because if it's someone on the streets too, you would, that's not because obviously you're being selfish, you love him, you don't want to lose your husband, but you're not the one who is sick. You don't know how this thing feels. Are you sure you're not the one that is just being extra? At some point, you know, one of, again, my bosses in the office had recommended this homeopathic care, and we had been seeing the specialist, the doctor as well. Homeopathic care, and you know, they just kept on saying how weak he was getting, how, you know, things like that. He at some point he wanted to stop going there, went to see various pastors to pray, you know, various famous pastors that we knew could heal, went to do all those kind of things. I mean, and looking back, I believe there was no point that I wasn't in fear. There were stages of the fear, I would say, but looking back, I can see how the fear was my disease. Like, it was everywhere. It was always in the room. I was afraid. I was in fear all the time. There was a time I didn't used to sleep. Even now, I haven't really got my sleep rhythm back, and I know where it started, because I didn't used to sleep, because I'd be so afraid that he'll die while I was sleeping. Because especially when he stopped taking any medication, I was just so afraid that he will just die. He will just die, and it should be only me. It should be only me. And so there was always that fear. Oh, there was so much fear. The herbal medicines that I used to give him, I'll be afraid, maybe correctly, maybe there was just always fear. So during those months, we're seeing the homeopathic specialists, we're going to pastors, we're doing different things, you know, we're always praying. There was always night vigil. Not night vigil, that's so bad English. There was always vigil in my house. We're always praying, you know, and for things to turn around, you know, but I could tell by July he was struggling. And July, I was going to be 35, but that's when he hadn't talked about death all this while. That's when he started again, you know, he started saying, I might not be able to give you the birthday that you want. You're 35. I don't know whether I'll be here for your birthday, but I want to be here. Much longer I'll be here. And oh God, even thinking about it now, because sometimes I beat myself up that maybe if I had really known that he was going to die, maybe I'd have been recording. Oh, sorry, I get a bit teary.
No problem. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We need a minute. It's actually a lot that Toritseju is, you know, trying to help, just share with us, and it takes a whole lot. It takes a whole lot to come out to do this. So we're so grateful. I'm so grateful. So grateful.
So yeah.
Problem at all.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I was saying that if I had really listened to him, because sometimes now when the children ask, I say, oh, if I had recorded some videos, sorry, this is just because If I had, oh dear. Okay. Sorry, I just want to make sure my tissue was handy. I'm sorry, guys.
Thank you.
So I'll say, maybe it was a bit selfish of me. You know, if I recorded, like, if I thought about the children more, maybe I'd have recorded some videos at that point. Because, you know, I think there's a movie like that where, you know, the dad is not there to, you know, show the son some things or show the dog, but there are videos. So like every milestone of their life,
Okay.
like he had recorded videos to play back. So I'm like, maybe if I had listened to him all those times when he was saying, oh, Toju, it's I'm getting weak out. This is, instead of, if I had listened to him, maybe I would have, you know, done other things. And, you know, a few people told us at that time, look, you guys should travel together, do a lot together. And I was like, no, I'm not accepting that. We only have a few months together. I'm not accepting it. I'm not accepting it, you know. So sometimes I still ask myself that maybe if I had listened, I would have preserved a lot more. But yeah, you know, that's just, I've realized that, you know, that's just the devil trying to keep me in regret. But, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so like I said, people who had gone through similar things were telling me, because they could see the signs medically. Anytime they visited, they would say, oh, I remember my neighbor, my direct neighbor, had at the time, her brother had just passed the year before. Excuse me. So she pulled me aside and she said, she knows nobody is going to, it's difficult. Nobody is going to want to have this difficult conversation with me. But just because of what she learned the year before, you know, she's going to tell me it's winding down. That she knows I'm in faith, but from what she can see, and that she's really praying, that's what she can see. And, you know, I was really upset at the time. Why would she tell me something like that? She should stop it. It's not winding down anywhere. That why would she tell me? She's just like, look, that I should just be prepared, whatever. And I'm like, I'm not getting prepared for any nonsense. She, like, I actually didn't want to talk to her or engage in the conversation. So what I then did to prove to myself again, I started talking to my friend who is an event planner, because we're going to, our 10th wedding anniversary was November that year. So I said, we're going to celebrate it in grand style, because I didn't have the wedding I wanted, because my dad took over the whole wedding. He became a total, you know how the mothers become divas. My dad became a diva. So I had always said, oh, when it's our 10th year anniversary, we'll do something. So I started making plans. You know, I'd even, you know, spoken to some people who do my dress, his suit, different things. And I was like, this will also be my gift to him. You know, I'd started taking pictures. I was taking pictures because I was like, Dako, you're going to be so proud of yourself before and after pictures. I want you to see what you looked like before and what you're going to look like after, when, you know, your health is restored and stuff. So I wasn't I wasn't there. To me, there was no, death wasn't happening. It wasn't even a subject. It wasn't happening. So even when people, you know, so towards that August, so he passed away September 25th. And so towards that August, September, you know how people just tend to now start visiting, when obviously they came the week before and they saw how the person was, and because they love you, they're coming by. Again, I used to get annoyed. I never expressed it, but I was getting annoyed because I'm like, this is everybody getting ready for him to die. He's not dying. Like, what's wrong with all of you? You know, I wanted to do everything. I think one of the turning points was the day, because again, I told you we used to go for this homeopathic therapy, was the day when he wasn't even strong enough to get into the car. My brother had to carry him on his back to get him into the car. I was now thinking, I was like, is he really that weak? Like, I hadn't wrapped my head around this thing at all. And then they called me from the place and they said there's no point of him coming any longer, that they also can't help him any longer. I said, whatever. If this is still God just, going to take the glory, nobody should help us. Nobody should help us. It's fine. God's going to take all the glory, type of thing. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Everybody should abandon us. They should leave us. God is going to take the glory. So his friend, one of his friends, called me. Literally, Kidako died on a Sunday. Called me. They had visited. He visited from America. He happened to be in town, but he visited from America. And he's one of those, black is back. He's so blunt. So he visited the weekend before. So on the Monday, he called me. He said, "Told you no, that I know people have been begging you, and you are not agreeing. But I'm hiring a nurse. I don't like what I can see. Apart from the fact that I don't like what I can see with that, for you are a wreck." And to me, I felt I was all right, but I remember my boss had said it, and the nutritionist she brought had brought that time to had said it. My siblings used to say it, how I had become so cold and numb and just detached from everything. Even now, I'm not completely back there, but I'm a lot better. But so I remember the day that she even said was they counted the number of times I went up and down the staircase within a space of maybe an hour or two. And she was like, "This is not healthy. It's not healthy. And you are not eating. You are not eating. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not like," during the course of the 4 years, I had passed out a few times and my blood was, but as far as I was concerned, I'm like, look, that's just little compared to what needs to be done. So anyway, this friend of his just said, "We are not, I'm going to hire, I'm not asking for your permission. I'm going to hire a nurse. If you like, don't use her, but she's going to be there because, Nikobami," was what he said. Nikobami, that we can't, if something happens to, that way is going to be okay. But what if you collapse? And there's nobody there? You're too tired and you just collapse and there's just nobody there. What's now going to, let's be worried about the person we're supposed to be worried about. We can't have this. Again, I was telling story. I was like, no, hey, how is it going to look? They're not going to say, I couldn't look after my husband. I had to hire a nurse. That's so irresponsible. I just kept on telling myself, it's so irresponsible. Told you you're a failure. It's so irresponsible and things. I was thinking, okay, if I told his brother and his family, I was hoping that they would say no. But his brother was like, look, they also had thought about it, but they didn't know how we're going to take it. So anyway, and I told my sister, and my sister was like, thank God, though, that she has been worried. I'm not listening to anyone. I'm just, focused on what I want to do. I'm not, so she's like, at least somebody has been able to talk some sense into me. So she knows a nursing agency. And so she's like, okay, maybe I'll be more comfortable with people that I know. Like her son, instead of just getting a normal nanny, she preferred to always have an auxiliary nurse look after him over the years. Now he's grown. So she contacted that agency and they sent us they sent us 2 guys or so, and then there was one guy who stayed on. So he died on a Sunday. This was on Monday. So on Tuesday, they sent us a guy who one came and said he couldn't. Can you imagine? Wow. I think that's when it started dawning on me that they're not lying. The guy said he couldn't. There was another guy who took it on, but then after the day that they said in the homeopathic place that there was no other treatment they could give him, he sat me down and he said, "Madam, we're prayerful and everything, but that he doesn't I'm trying to remember how. So there's this female nurse that had been in the family because a few years before my dad had to have surgery. So yes, okay. So when these two male nurses just didn't seem to have it together. Yes, I think my sister, that man had helped, but I think my sister visited one day. Yes, the male nurse came late, I think on the Tuesday and on the Wednesday. Yes, he came late. So there were some things. So at this point, this last week, he had gotten to the point where he could no longer walk. He could no longer eat. He could no longer, he went on himself. By went on himself, you understand what I mean? The two on himself. He could no longer do anything. He was just, because, you know, cancer is a wicked disease. You know, you've seen pictures and you've probably, so he had no control of any bodily function. So he couldn't, you know, like how a baby's body is just floppy. That's how his body was floppy. Yeah, his body was floppy. So, but because, you know, the mind might still be strong at some point, you know, so he would not maybe like on the Sunday, on the Monday, and it happens so fast. Like I can tell you like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like the things that just kept on going, you know, the functions that you just see the person disappearing right before your eyes. They just fade away. That was it. He was just fading away slowly. It was no longer Dapo. So I remember that Thursday, I had told my cousin, please come and take the children. I think that maybe that was when I started, that was like something bad. Because my daughter, especially, because my daughter is very matter of fact. She especially, because there was just a chair that after dressing him up in the morning, I'll just sit him down there, you know. So she would just pass by and she will not look at him. She will just walk past. So I'm like trying to also be a therapist for the children. Do you understand what I mean? So I called her and I'm like, what's that about? Why won't you look at your daddy? Because my son would still go and hug him, daddy, even though he would not respond. And she said, that's not my daddy. I said, oh God. She said, that's not my daddy. And I said, you know, and I said, like, really, I can't force her. I can't, because she would literally pass, like, you know, when you're trying to avoid someone, and she would literally do her face. She usually do like this so she doesn't see him. So I was like, this is actually, like, I'd never considered again how this new level will be traumatic for them. It's after he died, when I was looking at the pictures, I was like, this is horror. Was this what we were seeing? Was this what they were seeing? I was like, is this how Dako became? Like, I couldn't see that. It was afterwards when I look at the pictures, I'm like, because I think the first thing that made me go back and look at the pictures was I saw some actress that they said had cancer, and they put her before and after pictures side by side on Instagram, and I was like, oh. So I now went back to look at Dako's pictures, and I'm like, wow, is this what these children were seeing? You know, gaunt, skeletal person. Oh God, I couldn't even believe it. Anyway, so on that Thursday, I told them to take the children. And okay, so this was now that whole week. I don't think I slept. At some point, I swore for God. I told God, I said, you are wicked. You are wicked. You are wicked. What kind of father looks at something like this happening to his child and does nothing? You are wicked. You are a wicked God. There's nothing that is going to convince me otherwise. You are wicked. And because I am even a mother, you have no points. Yeah, you know, you come and start saying, oh, somebody doesn't have faith, it's out of your hands. But I'm like, as a mother, even if it is out of my hands, if my child is suffering in a ditch, I can't leave the child there now. I will pull the child out. I can't just do that. But, you know, I've grown from then. My relationship with God has grown. He has explained a lot to me that I didn't see then. And of course, I know that God is love. There is nothing. I know that there are many things that we can't explain. There's still a few people still have that thing hanging in the air that, okay, but why does he let things happen? You know, even though we explain everything else, he's sovereign. So you can't tell me that if he truly wanted, he could not just snap his fingers. But yeah, we live in a fallen world. There are principles that have been put in place. The devil is the one that brings sickness and things like that. He has already given us what we need, which is faith. He has told us by his stripes you were healed. Not even you are healed, you were. Meaning disease has no place in your body, first of all. So you even accepting a disease is a problem. You're already out of faith by the time you accept. Yeah, different people might argue different things that, oh, but there are some people that did that and they still died. And anyway, that's not what this forum is for. So I'm sorry for digressing, but yeah, I just thought to put that in there. So on Saturday, yes. So we then got this female nurse to come and stay, who had, my sister was like, so yeah, what I was saying then was for 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, the male nurses who came kept coming after their work was done. So I ended up still doing the work on Tuesday and Wednesday. So my sister was like, look, there's no point. They should just be going back. There's no point. Because another reason why they had even said was I was still taking the children to school. So I'd have to wake up in the morning. What is that? In the morning, get them ready, get the children ready. Yes, there was a nanny and stuff, but like I said, I was an obsessive mother because to me, I felt if I wasn't doing these things, I was a failure. At this time from work, I'd been given a contract. So I wasn't going into the office every day. So to me, I'm like, so you're not going to the office every day. You're working from home. So you now want to be totally useless, Abby. You can't do. I used to talk a lot of negativity to myself in my head that people didn't know. Anyway, so I'm like, so you now want to be useless, Abby. You can now, they've not gotten us to help you. You don't know what to do. Anyway, so I'd put him there, and then the nanny would stay home with him while I took the children to school. Because again, I felt I was devoting too much time to him and I wasn't being a mother. So I always try to balance things, you know. So that night, we got the female nurse to come and stay on Thursday. So this was now Saturday night, and before after dressing him up and all that, he moved from being assisted. There's something like being assisted where you and the person are putting the person's leg through the trousers. I remember my boss at that time, she helped us sew some Ankara trousers because I needed something with drawstring. Then it got to the point where it was no longer assisted. It's just you, the helper, putting the clothes on for him because he can't now move. Couldn't move anymore. Then he would just be drooling because he couldn't eat, he couldn't close his mouth, he could hardly see. Then he became totally incoherent. Like his mind was no longer strong. Like, before at least the mind would be, I felt I could still at least talk to him slowly. He would still tell me things, this is hurting, that is hurting. Then it went to the point where he wasn't even coherent. I would see him trying to say something, but he wasn't connecting, and so Saturday night, the whole of Saturday, he, before that he would even be able to sit upright and stuff. Now he just lay there. He was just then lying. I had brought his mattress to the sitting room upstairs because we're still getting visitors. So he just lay there and he wasn't eating, he wasn't drinking because he couldn't swallow. Again, that's another thing that again happened. It then gets to the point where the person can't even swallow because, like I said, the body is just dying. Everything is shutting down. So because the person is obviously unable to lift their hand, lift their legs, the person is also now unable to swallow. So he couldn't swallow, so there was no point any longer. So that night, I remember the nurse told me, and I feel she did it on purpose, she told me I should try to sleep. And I did try, but it wasn't working. Then I came out and then I heard the way he was breathing. Normally you do hear people breathing unless they have like asthma or something. But by the time
Yes,
you
you do.
can hear someone breathing, you know that there's something wrong. So, and the only way I can describe it was like there was water in his lungs. So apart from the wheezing sound, I could hear like bubbles. I can't still get that sound away from my head. I could hear bubbles in the breathing. I don't know how to describe it. So it just, to me, it just signified that he was fading, like he was evaporating. That was what I got from it. And, you know, I held his hand, we're there. Then, you know, it now went from breathing, just hearing the sound, to breathing and hanging. So he'll take a breath and he'll just hang. Then he'll exhale. Then, of course, that got longer. He will hold it. So my hope was always like, okay, at least let him exhale. So then, of course, it then got to the point where, and there was no exhale. And I'm like, okay, still not looking. Then I look at the nurse, and the nurse looks at me, and she then starts to do the whole pulse, heartbeat. And I'm like, no, no, you guys, no. But at that point, I went, because I had been numb for a while. Now I went totally numb. I didn't even cry. I think maybe I was in shock. Because to me, I was just like, really? Are you guys sure? So after all this, really? He still died? Really? So I was just sitting down there, looking at the nurse, doing pulse, checking this. I know she was now telling me, because she used to call me Auntie Told You. So she said, Auntie Told You that, say you call the hospital, or who are you going to call? Will you call your sister? Will you call your brother? Or who are you going to call? I was just looking at her. So she now picked up the phone and called her own boss and called, I think that was friend. And I was still just looking at her, just looking at her, just looking at her. Then I just lay down beside him. And I just stayed there. And then she'll come and she'll tap me. She's like, Auntie Told You that, you know, you need to, because rigor mortis, all that will soon set in. You need to call people so that they start doing what they're supposed to do with the body. And I was just looking at her. You know, because I'm like, I was just in shock. I knew what to do, because but I was just like, no. So at some point, after she called me a few times, I then she had called the doctor already. Then I called the doctor again, and then he now said, the nurse said she had checked everything. Do you want her to check it again? And now said, this was like after 30 minutes. And now said, yes, you should check it again. She checked it again. She said nothing, and he wasn't breathing. There was no pulse. There was no heartbeat. There was no anything. So he now said he's going to call it. And he now said, okay, at that time of death, blah, 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 told you that what has passed on, and you need to call family. And yeah, family. So he now said he would advise I call his family first to let them know before I start, because usually what happens is if I call my family and my friends, because of all the crying, I might then now just forget.
Okay.
So I should call his brother and at least do that, obviously. So I called his brother. That one said no. He's coming to see it for himself, that no. And they lived in Ibadan. His brothers lived in Ibadan. His sisters in Lagos. So, of course, they called round and they said they were coming. They're not going to believe until they see the body, that no, he can't be dead, he can't be dead. So you can imagine what this means, from Ibadan to Lagos, hours. So Dako's body was on the mattress upstairs for hours, you know. So I called my sister. Of course, I don't know what happened after that. I just know people were just flooding into the house. Flooding. I remember one thing though. I was sitting down holding his hand, and my friends from uni, all of them were on the couch, and they were all just wailing, crying. I think my boss was there, my sister was there, my siblings. Everybody was just crying. And this I was just looking at all of them. My neighbors came because, you know, like I said, I wasn't preparing for anybody to die. My neighbors came, tried to hold my hand at the time, you know. No, it was just so, yeah, people were just coming. And many people were concerned because I hadn't broken down. I hadn't cried. I was just numb. I was like a zombie. So they kept on just looking at me. Then they didn't let me go anywhere alone after that, because lots of stuff happened to people when they're in shock. And, you know, people tend to still prefer for people to break down and cry and wail than for people who are just obviously no, and you don't know what exactly is going to happen. They're going to bring out a knife and stab themselves or slit their wrist. You really don't know. So I was just totally numb. I even tried to cry. At some point, I really, really tried to cry, but the tears were not coming, you know. But eventually, when his family came, and then the people from the morgue came, and they carried his body out. And I actually saw that the car was leaving with his body. The horse, I mean, what they call those things. But they were leaving with his body. Yeah, I just broke down and started to scream. Yeah, and that was it. That was it. That was it. Yeah.
How? Again, Toritseju, I'm so sorry, and thank you again for just choosing to do this. We may need to have another part. We'll discuss it privately, where we'll talk about some other things that I thought we could discuss in this session. But I will skip some questions to move on to some other parts. I want to talk about children and other things, but I'll talk about that maybe later. We can talk about that privately. For you at this time, maybe just one or two questions, then we'll close this. What were the greatest lessons that you learned with everything that had happened? You know, just the times of going through the medical procedures and you just keeping on. What maybe 3 lessons would you say that you learned personally that has and is still helping you till today? Because one thing is sure, your perspective about life is going to be above the average person, and of course even your pursuits, you're not going to be struggling and just fighting over the things that maybe an average person is going to be fighting over just because of your upgraded perspective. So what lessons have you learned from this so far? Would you like to share?
So one thing I know that I learned and God really delivered me from is that fear. And I would say something that surrounds that is being real and honest with yourself. You know, I mean, there's so many lessons. I don't even because now I'm in hindsight, there's so many things I can pick on. But yeah, owning your truth from the beginning, so you know how to heal. You know, not being in denial, surrounding yourself with family and friends who love you, people who love you and who will be there for you. Like, there's a there for you and there's a there for you. You know, there's a difference between just saying, oh, and I've blogged about this because I know that people don't know how to handle grief and they don't know what to do a lot. And again, maybe I'm now digressing to the advice for young widows, but I often try to say, please don't blame people. Don't blame people. Don't blame people, because you really don't know. It's really difficult from the outside, not knowing what to do to help, you know. And what I mean by there's a there for you where people just say it's hanging in the air. Oh, you call me if you need something, or you need to cry. Then there's a I'm coming to sit in your house. I'm not moving. Whether it's that you need me to follow you to the toilet, I hold your hand. You need me to just open the door for you, or you need me to open your bottle of water and pour it in your glass for you. I'm not moving. So this one, I'm not even asking that. Call me if you need anything. I am coming to sit in your house. Don't open the door. I'll be by your doorstep. Do you understand the difference between the two? Like I don't. I'm going to be there for you, and this is what people need. Even in our world today, COVID, and even without COVID, generally, my sister says this thing all the time. Like, if we can all just be more loving. I know it takes a lot, so it takes a lot because there's so much going on with everybody before you start even saying you're going to be there for someone else. But if you have told yourself that you're going to be there for this person, don't be okay with calling once in a while, texting, or telling them, tell me when you need something. No, don't. Be in their face, because there's so many things, they don't even know how to describe it, they don't know what to say. Do you understand? So on the flip side of that, I've tried to learn how to be more vocal about how I feel or what it's sometimes really difficult, but I think that has taught me a lot, like trying to open up, even though like those closest to me will still say I'm so withdrawn and I'm still so cold and I still don't, maybe open up, but I think I'm better. I'm really going from that. And I won't even belittle the relationship with God by putting it in this category, because to me, that encapsulates every other thing. Making sure that you have a relationship with God. And notice I didn't say be a Christian or be a Muslim or go to church or pray more. No, your relationship with God. Your relationship with God. Like there's nothing that can take away from that, because God wants you to be as He's our Father at the end of the day. He wants you to be real. Within the first week of that God died, something I learned and that I'm still putting into place now is getting to the root of something. And God told me when I was trying to again talk to Him, because really I'd always had a sense of God. I'd always been a Christian from when I was young, but apart from being a Christian, I've had a relationship with God. It's just that this level of sickness and death was just another different level. But the whole relationship with God, being open and real with Him, because at the end of the day, He is our Father. Do you understand? So that even though I was angry, I was pained, and I really felt hurt and betrayed by Him, He was still the only person that I could talk to, So that week after, while I was talking to Him, He told me one thing, because when you are used to burying emotions, clouding different things, so something I'm used to doing now is when I'm faced with a situation, I immediately ask myself, what is at the root of this thing? What exactly is it I'm dealing with? Because you might think, oh, I'm dealing with
depression,
envy, or I'm dealing with depression, I'm dealing with anger, I'm dealing with this, and then you find out that what is at the root of it is hurt.
Yes.
Or what is at the root of it is fear. Or what is at the root of it is pride. So and then you spend so much time with other different things, but you don't get to the root of the problem. And then you're not real with yourself about your needs. Nobody was made as an island. Nobody is supposed to be alone. Do you understand? It's okay to open your mouth and talk to somebody and say, I need you there with me. I need you there with me. I actually do. And God sends helpers. God sends helpers. But sometimes unknowingly we might send them away for different reasons. Because in hindsight, when I play everything back, I see the miracles. I see the things that God put in place to help. I see all those things. Do you understand? So that relationship with God, I cannot overestimate it. Or even underestimate. I can't even, it encapsulates everything, yes. And, surrounding yourself with loved ones, being honest and open with yourself and your mental health, your everything, together. There's so much. I don't even know how to pick.
Okay, so what I want to call the last question, or maybe I'll do it in two batches, and of course, I'm sure it's the summary you try to give. It would be, what made you start writing? Is it that you've always enjoyed writing, or writing was some sort of therapy for you and you engaged it? And my final question would be, what are the three things about Dapo that you miss the most?
Wow, 3.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think 3. But anyway, what made me start writing? I've always loved writing. Literature was my favorite subject in school, so I've always liked writing. I used to write poems. Dapo and I used to write poems to each other. But so, because like I said I was going to chronicle him, the healing journey. So I'd created the blog before he died. But
okay,
putting pen to paper, it was difficult while the journey was going on. I couldn't write anything because I don't know. I just couldn't write until he died. But I had made the blog, and the blog then, my intention was, how I was going to show that he went through cancer and he was this miracle walking person and he lived through it and now he was victorious. So it was just still all going to be about his journey and him. Yeah. So 3 things I miss about Dapo. I can't pick 3, but oh my goodness, like I don't want to start crying again. So I'm trying to really articulate it in a very normal way. Dapo had a presence, like even with his children, like he was a father, he was a friend, he was a husband. Like I tell people how spoiled I was, how spoiled I still am. Because even in death, I can still see him taking care of me because of things he has put in place. Do you understand?
yeah.
So, oh God, you see, okay, she never tell again. Oh God. Okay, so, I can't pick 3. Yeah. I can't pick 3. I can't. I don't know where to start from.
Okay, but in addition to what you've shared, is there any other thing you would like to share regarding, maybe apart from what you miss about him? If you're not able to pick 3, is there maybe one more point you want to add? It may not be, up until the number you want, or any last words you want to say before we close off?
Yeah, I just miss him being there. Because, for widows and for people who have lost somebody really dear to them, he used to lie down on the bed with the person, used to have conversations, and then the next day, they're just not there. It's not like they've gone on holiday. They're literally not there. So, like, I remember the first few weeks, or even now, like different things, like on the roads, and because he was an engineer, so like even like some traffic lights, some things, like when they removed the roundabouts from the Lekki Ekpe, we used to talk about it, and I'll just be like, I wish you could see what they've done with the road, because we used to say it a lot that if they will only just remove the roundabout and put traffic lights, why can't they think about putting traffic lights? So I'm just like, if you could see what they've done, because there was a time I still used to have very active conversations with him, because he was my best friend. Do you understand? He was just, and this is something again I talk about with regards to marriage. Make sure you marry your friend. So yeah, so I can't, like, I genuinely miss him as a person, as a human being. Like, I miss his presence in our lives. Yeah, as a person. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Toritseju, for choosing to do this. again, the purpose of this interview was fulfilled. Even though there are a lot of angles we didn't touch, that's totally okay. We'll come to touch it at another time. That's okay. Parenting another time. Talk about it at another time. I want to thank everybody, every single person that has been a part of this. Please share this video to a young widow. Share this to somebody who is grieving. It is very therapeutic and it will be very helpful. And please DM and just tell her thank you and just pray for her and her family, for her children and her present life at this time. I will definitely let you know when we're going to be having the next part and angle of this topic, but from another perspective. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Toritseju, for the strength and even staying more than the time, because this was not our planned time, but of course it just all has a purpose. It is very purposeful. Thank you everybody.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. You get the replay at sage_nel on Instagram. Thank you and have a fantastic weekend, Toritseju, and everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.